Welcome to the Logistics Point interviews. I'm joined by Koepke, who is from FourKites, and we're going to talk about shipping, digitization, and what is going in the maritime sector in general. Glenn, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's great to see you.
Where are we now when it comes to technology implementation in the shipping industry?
I would say we're at a very unique position. We went from container pricing that was, upwards of 10x of what we had seen over the last 10 years. We saw strikes, right? When we think of the port of Filosto, you still have, COVID disruptions in ports in China. Just in the U.S. alone, we saw import volume increase by 40%. Things have changed significantly, right? Container pricing is softened immensely back to, I think what most of us are used to. General disruptions have minimized quite a bit. Every company, whether you're a shipper, a BCO, a freight forwarder, a road haulier, all of us recognize that technology does help automation. It does help empower our most precious assets, which are our people, to understand where things are in the physical supply chain and what to do. As I talk to companies today, both on the freight forwarding side and the shipper side, companies are looking at, all right, where are we investing today? And as we take our lessons learned from the last 2 or 3 years, do these investments really focus at the heart of the issues there? There is a component of budget constraints, right? So as revenue has softened for many companies based on demand, they've also seen costs go down though, right? So profit margins may not be impacted as much as one thinks, but on the technology side, what we're seeing is digital is key, and digital means different things. Understanding where goods are at any given time, and the ETA is critical. That's common in the market. But we also see companies investing in real-time pricing engines, really the customer experience side of things too, right? When you think of that B2B customer, how are companies engaging with me? How are my end consumers engaging with me? But then on the reverse of the supply chain, how are my suppliers engaging with me? So we see a lot of focus on real-time visibility, real-time pricing, customer experience, and really supplier engagement tools with the focus of automation and helping from a risk management standpoint.
Do you think we've already reached this point where we don't just understand why is it important, but it's a more mature understanding of what needs to be done, where are the most important points?
So I think on the maritime side, it's very unique compared to other modes around the world, right? I think if you look at road freight in the UK or road freight in continental Europe or the US, things have advanced much quicker. The biggest reason why, and I think those in ocean shipping will understand it, is the decentralization of road hauliers is very different, right? And the fragmentation is massive, right? You have hundreds of thousands of companies versus, call it 20 that, reside down into a few alliances. And so, I think from a maritime technology standpoint, I still think we are largely untapped as to what can really happen in maritime transport. I really do. A select few companies really dominate global trade. And one of the challenges that they have and ocean shipping has seen for the last 20 years is those companies' profit margins were very high. Revenue growth was outstanding for the last 3 years. However, as you look to 2023 and beyond, things have changed immensely. So as steamship lines look to, change their investment strategy, try and retain profitability, it does impact their ability to invest in technology and automation. So, the way I would classify maritime is the world is the oyster. There's still so much to tackle in maritime transport from a digitization standpoint. If you think about the average container move, whether it's China to UK, UK to US, or vice versa, the amount of parties, you could have 9 to 20 different parties touching a transaction. And I think blockchain, the hype around blockchain was it's going to solve all this, right? And one of the things I think we struggle as supply chain buyers is we get very excited for these ideas that are marketed, but they really never have the full impact, right? And so, I think we're still looking for blockchain 2.0 in maritime. We believe visibility is a portion of that, but there's still so much more that we can all contribute into to create a more automated maritime world.
When it comes to maritime, we also need to think about more the hardware, right? The ships and things like that. How about the change there, especially with all of these things that are happening around net zero?
Carbon emission is obviously very important. The challenge with the steamship line is the vessels are extremely expensive, one to purchase or lease or to operate the physical staff. It is very different than purchasing a truck, right? As an example, and so the whole concept of net zero and really carbon emission will continue to be a focus. So you do see continued tech companies trying to solve that equation. I think the challenge that those companies face is, what's really my revenue model and how do I create a product to really address some of these things? So, if you think of maritime transport, obviously, the fuel equation, the routing, the engine types, these all are a part of that challenge. And from a physical routing standpoint, it's very different than trying to solve for road freight optimization, right? In road freight, you'll have, consolidation centers, deconsolidation centers, you'll have stop-offs, right? Because the physical road is a very different network than the global ocean. So these are things that are going to continue to be a focus. I think what we'll see, though, is a lot of lofty goals have been put out for 2030, 2040, 2050, and there still isn't the exact science yet of how companies are going to meet that. The good thing is it is an absolute focus for many companies, and it's needed for the welfare of future citizens of the world. But there's still a long way to go with how we look at sustainability and transport in the maritime world.
Well, Glenn, thank you very much for your time. People can learn more about what we just spoke, but also other things from FourKites in the description below. Thank you very much.